My little plant nursery often sells succulents at markets, and one of the FAQs I get is, why are the leaves on my succulents drooping and pointing downwards? I must have heard this question hundreds of times over the last decade I've been growing succulents for a living, and believe I've narrowed down the main reasons why this can happen with succulents. After some back and forth with the customers, a very common theme has developed. A great majority of people with this problem had one thing in common. That one thing was lack of light. When it comes to succulents, most prefer lots and lots of light. Pretty much all succulents in this tray are grown in a full sun position. It's how they stay compact, colorful and happy. Although full sun can be problematic during heat waves, most sun-loving succulents should be in the sun at least all morning or about 5 hours per day, followed by bright light. But let me demonstrate just how much light can matter to a succulent and how lack of it can make the leaves droop. A couple of months ago, I've done an experiment with Echeveria bluebird, which is particularly prone to drooping leaves when the light drops by just a bit. All three plants are grown from tissue culture, which means they are genetically identical but are also from the same batch, therefore the same age. I've purposefully put this one in a greenhouse with a 70% shade factor, and it has had a dramatic effect on the way it looks. We can all agree most of the leaves are drooping quite drastically. This middle plant looks a bit better as it's been under 50% shade cloth, and while it has grown upwards with a bit of droop in the leaves, it is not as dramatic. However, it is still not ideal. 50% shade cloth is not that bad and the greenhouse is still very bright, but it's definitely not enough for the bluebird. Both 50 and 70% are still much brighter than what you'd get indoors, which would create even worse leaf drooping and elongated growth that I've seen here. And finally, the third plant. This bluebird has been growing under 30% shade cloth and the leaves are looking just about right. We've had some heat waves in the last couple of months, and so the spot under the shade cloth was a must. We're heading towards the winter here in Australia, which means the sun won't get hot enough to cause burns, and so this pretty little bluebird is going out in full sun to get even more compact and colorful. Back to my market customers that had problems with drooping, most were keeping their succulents in insufficient light and even worse, indoors. Poor light is, in my experience, the number one reason leaves can droop. In fact, many problems people encounter with succulents could be solved by simply growing them in proper light. This Echeveria hybrid is extremely prone to fungal disease and rotting, and as a result it needs to live in a greenhouse where I can control watering and keep dry for most of the time. When leaves get dry like this, they can droop. It's not as obvious with this variety as the leaves are naturally chunky, but thinner leaf succulents will droop quite a bit when kept dry, to the point of being wrinkly. The good news is that in this case the drooping can be easily fixed by a good soak. It's not uncommon for root-bound succulents to have droopy leaves and grow tall rather than compact. This little Echeveria Morning Beauty has been in a tiny pluck tray for far too long and needs a new home. The droopy leaves in this case can be simply fixed by repotting the plant. Many succulents start growing rapidly once spring hits, and when this is coupled with repotting, some plants can grow so fast the bottom leaves will droop a bit. The good news is that this type of drooping corrects itself once the plant establishes in the new pot. I literally see this happening only in spring and only in some succulents. Some succulents are also more prone to have droopy leaves than others. In my experience, many species or cultivars from Aeonium, Echeveria, Haworthia and Sempervivum genera are more likely to develop droopy leaves even at a fairly slight change. I've seen others say that overwatering and rotting plants can be blamed for droopy leaves too, but I'm not sure I'd agree with that. The great majority of my plants grow outdoors and don't develop droopy leaves even when it rains for days on end. On the subject of rotting plants, the only ones I've seen with droopy leaves were those that already had droopy leaves from mostly living in too much shade before the plant even started rotting. And that is all I have to say about succulents and droopy leaves. I hope you found this video useful, and if you'd like to add anything or have a question, you can leave a comment below and I'll do my best to answer. If you'd like to learn more about succulents, you can hit the subscribe button or visit succulentgrowingtips.com. Thank you very much for watching.